All right, and we are live. Welcome to Winterviews, Season 3, Episode 4. I am your host, Catherine Silva, and tonight we are joined by Chad Lutzke. How are you doing tonight, Chad?
I'm doing good, thanks.
I am very excited for this episode as we will be talking about coming of age horror, which is something that I think we have talked about. I know we definitely did an episode on it during the first series with Tom Deedy. And we may have done an episode last year. I can't quite remember, but everybody's view of the subject is different and everybody's take on it will be a little different as well. So we will start maybe by if you wouldn't mind just sort of letting our viewers know a little bit more about you and some of your recent works.
Okay. I've been writing for a decade, I guess. And I started writing with just one book that was a coming of age. And then I thought that I had gotten that out of my system. And then I wrote another one and then another one. And I've written a lot of them since then. And I dabble in crime as well, some humorous crime, a lot of it just dark. Lots of slice of life coming of age, as well as the uh, dark. Some it's arguably horror. You know, stuff like Bruises on a Butterfly, I guess, is a little bit more horror, but something like Foster Homes and Flies would be, to me, is just like dark drama, I guess, just because it deals with dark elements. And yeah, I'm a musician and graphic designer as well, and I've written some children's books and illustrated them too with my wife. And we have a YouTube channel that has taken all of our time right now. So,
What's the YouTube channel? I'm curious.
It's called Creepy Couch, and we just launched it in January. And it's us watching movies, but it's much more than what you're probably used to if you watch any kind of reaction channels like music or movies. This is a little bit more than that. We had like cutaway skits and things like that in there, and just a simple video of us watching a movie takes me anywhere from 15 to 20 plus hours to edit.
Mm-hmm.
So and we've been putting up 2 a week on Sundays and
Oh, wow.
Thursdays, and we're trying to get monetized. So if anyone is listening or watching this, we would love your subscription. You know, over it's called Creepy Couch. You can just Google, or not Google it, but type it into YouTube. And I think we have we just put our 13th video up today.
Wow.
So
okay. And are you doing horror movies? Is it all?
Yeah, it's all horror movies.
Okay. Awesome. So for anybody who can't make it this evening, we will be providing that link in the description of this YouTube video so that you can find it for yourselves. You are definitely encouraged to go subscribe and check it out. But on to our subject of the evening, which is coming of age horror. This is definitely a topic that I have not done as much reading in as I would like, but I love it. I think one of my favorites is Summer of Night by Dan Simmons. Mm-hmm. And that was kind of my introduction. So I'm wondering what your introduction was to coming of age horror.
Well, probably movies first, because I didn't even start reading novels until I was 24, 25. I hated reading. It's amazing that I'm a writer because of how much I hated reading. I'd rather be out skateboarding or playing in my band or anything but sit there and read. So movies for sure. And then but as far as books, when I finally did start reading, one of the very first books I read was Boys to Life by Robert R. McCammon. So probably that. And then um, yeah, that just really appealed to me. I don't know what it is about the subgenre that does, but in some of the movies before that were like River's Edge is it's not horror. It's very dark, but
Mm.
it's probably the gosh, if I had to blame one movie and or book for just what I choose to write about, that might be the movie. It's one of my favorites. Um, I just love everything about it, and so movies like that. Super Dark Times would be
Mm.
another more recent good coming of age dark thing that I really like. There's a lot of them, but
Okay.
books, Stephen King's The Body. I think I listened to that on audiobook when I was in my teens. So
Mm.
I don't know if that would count as um, reading or not. But yeah,
Yeah, I think so.
I think my dad had sent that to me. And so I mean, I think of it as reading nowadays, but back then it never crossed my mind that I had read a book
Mm.
because I was listening to these cassette tapes while I was going to bed at night. And I really enjoyed that. Um, there's another book I read called Temple of Gold by William Goldman. It's not horror at
Mm.
all, but it is coming of age. And so that would be, and because I guess I like coming of age regardless of the genre.
Hmm.
And because I'm such a horror fanatic, that it makes sense to fuse the two. And so
Sure.
when I
Yeah.
saw people doing them, but I hadn't seen. I think coming of age has certainly got a lot more popular since I started reading books. I don't I don't know that it was around a whole lot. I think Summer of Night was out in the early to mid '90s when I started reading. Um, I think I've never read it. I
Think.
know that it's it's one of those books like The Body, Boy's
Hmm.
Life, Summer of Night. Those three are just kind of like, especially Boy's Life and Summer of Night. They're just kind of like always on lists together for
Hmm.
coming of age horror. So um, yeah, I guess that's those are some of the books that kind of got me interested, or knowing that it's out there and that it's available and that this is something that I'm really into.
Yeah. We've talked a little bit on previous shows about being inspired by non-horror things
Hmm.
that are still in that genre and then fusing horror into them. So I totally
Hmm.
get why some of the other pieces might have inspired you, and then
Yeah.
how you changed them to make it work with your genre.
Hmm.
Um, so obviously, coming of age horror is something that you are known for with some of your previous works,
Hmm.
one of your current works that just came out. Um, what is it about the genre that draws you in to want to write about it?
Um, I think it boils down to nostalgia, especially. I think that um, maybe not everyone, but I think most people kind of get off on nostalgia. But I think this is a day and age now, especially with somebody, I grew up in the '70s and '80s, and someone my age, this is just such a different world, um, such a different world, particularly with social media, the internet in general, sure, and cell phones and stuff like that, but particularly with social media. If you didn't want to, if you just didn't want to, I don't know, learn, or if you didn't want to like be around like the news and what's going on in the world, you just kind of wanted to escape, and whatever town you might live in, just don't watch the news at 6 or 11,
Yeah.
and just don't read the paper, and you're clueless. Once in a while, somebody, unless there's a war that started, and people are maybe talking about it at school, but you don't hear about all the Hollywood drama. You don't hear about all of
Mhm.
the which is just senseless anyway. And you don't hear about the Joe Blow killing all these people over here because it's not local. So you just don't really, and so
Mhm.
that made for a seemingly much nicer world, I guess, to live in. Out of sight, out of mind, ignorance is bliss.
Mhm.
And so I think, particularly for people my age, kind of harkening back to that and thinking about when you were a kid. And I think no matter even kids that are growing up right now, which man, I feel for them, but I think that they're going to look back on the 2020s and be like, oh, the good old days. I think
Yeah.
every generation goes through that.
Sure.
Um, I, I I can't say that I'm sure a lot of the feelings that I have about growing up back then versus growing up now is the same thing that my parents and my grandparents felt, but I can't help but think that this is a lot more different. Yeah, they had the
Mhm.
TV, invented and stuff, but this is just a whole different thing with, you know, like I said, with social media and in particular.
Yeah.
And for me, I guess just not only is it nostalgia that I'm attracted to, but it's for just nostalgia's sake, and the fact that most of us kind of are attracted to that anyway. It's some way or another, but also because uh, it just seems to be, yeah, like the world was a brighter place because of the blinders we were able to put on.
Mhm.
Um, and not all of it was not just because we didn't hear about it. There were certain things that just aren't as bad at all that weren't going on back then.
Yeah.
So so yeah, I think that that's part of the attraction is just me kind of reliving. Not that I um pull directly from my childhood, but just kind of either reliving moments or just recalling what it was like to build a fort or something,
Mhm.
in the woods or in a tree or in the ground or in a cornfield. Or there's so much of that, and so yeah, I think it. I think the one word answer would be nostalgia.
Yeah. I mean, I grew up in the 90s and it was still, I mean, internet was pretty like bad
Yeah.
in the 90s, so there was still this you didn't have the access to information as well as you do now. Everybody's got a
Hmm.
cell phone, everybody can look up something super quick.
Yeah.
And so I totally get that. Just that freedom of like, I can go outside and ride my bike and get away from this and
Hmm.
not have any idea what's going on, and lose yourself in this world of tree forts and, exploring the woods and just, so there's definitely nostalgia in it, which I definitely got
Hmm.
from your most recent book. And also this idea that there's a youthful freedom. Kids don't really have to worry about these kinds of things yet. So it's a
Yeah.
yeah, it's just, well, it was lovely anyway to read.
Thank you.
Um,
Thank you.
and going on what you were saying about growing up in the 70s, this new book, Bruises on a Butterfly, takes place during the 70s. um, do you typically stick to that time period, the one that you grew up in, when you write, or have you sort of played with some different time periods in your coming of age horror?
Yeah, I've played with different types. To be honest, until you said that, I didn't even realize it was. I wrote this book like 3+ years ago, I think. So I can't even remember what that it was took place in the 70s, and because most of my stuff is just like I don't see the importance of telling the era, unless
Mhm.
it plays a huge role in it. Same way with characters, unless it plays a huge role, it doesn't matter to me if someone thinks that that they're black or white or brown or white. It doesn't matter. So there are books that I've written a lot where if let's say I could write book 2 or 3, and then all of a sudden say this person is black, and it's because I've never mentioned it before. It's just, I just don't see the sense in it. So the same goes with era. I probably maybe write. I have books where they use cell phones and stuff like that, but I don't like to deal with the cell phone and the internet.
Yeah.
Looking up crap on the internet. But I a couple of my books I do. They're modern, and they have cell phones, especially my crime stuff. And they have books, or that they have computers and stuff, or cell phones, or whatever, the internet. My slice of life, dark coming of age stuff is like late 80s. And then I guess this is in the 70s, and the Bed Makers as in the 70s as well. 79, okay. 79, I think. I don't know. Yeah, maybe it's because writing for me is supposed to be escapism. So just like reading. And so it's like, I don't want to talk about the internet. I don't want to talk about COVID. I don't want to read about COVID. It's like we're still kind of living through that. And it's not, I don't think it's wrong to, even if you write a book in the 2020s and you don't talk about COVID, I think that's okay. It's not something that the last 4 years have sucked bad. And some it sucked really bad for some, and but for all of us it has. So yeah, I things like that. I'm not interested in providing for, like I would never do what King did, I guess, with Holly, which I know some people really like. And then some people hate the book because it's COVID this and COVID that. And it's like, dude, I wouldn't want to write something like that. But some people do like it. I remember when COVID was brand new, I remember thinking either everybody was going to stop reading post-apocalyptic books, or for some weird reason they were going to take off. I remember thinking that. I was thinking, okay, this is because post-apoc is so popular, especially with like self-publishing and stuff. It's such a powerful niche. And so I remember thinking, well, they're done because people read for escapism, but I don't know. People also, I don't know. We're not all the same. So I know that I didn't want to read any of that stuff. But I don't know that I don't have any kind of like super set thing, just what I'm feeling and what the story calls for, as far as will a cell phone ruin it, or do I want to take this back to when I was a kid, or would I like to have cell phones and the internet in here for this story? So depends on the story.
Yeah. We'll share this comment from Jose, which is, I read The Strand after COVID. And
so that's what I'm talking about. People liked Jose there, just punishing themselves.
And he has another comment here, which is, I want a prequel to the Bed Makers. I need to know how they became such good friends and more about their misadventures together. The way that they were there for each other just made the whole book for me. So
dude, thanks, man. I appreciate that.
Definitely got a fan here from Jose. And thank you, Jose, for coming and watching. We appreciate that you're here.
Yeah, man.
So I guess my next question is, what are some of your favorite pairings with coming of age horror? Like, do you like to Um, put it with some supernatural stuff? Do you like to typically pair it up with body horror, which there's a little bit of that going on in Bruises on a Butterfly?
No, Bruises on Butterfly is kind of an outlier for me. I do not write supernatural, with the exception of a handful of short stories, but none of my books deal with that, unless it's like ambiguous and you're
Mm-hmm.
just not really sure. Um, but and then the body horror thing, I've always been interested in body horror more. I think my definition of body horror and other people's are different. When I think of body horror, I just think of like David Cronenberg and
Mm,
strange, unnatural things happening to a body
yeah.
that should not be happening.
Mm-hmm.
Where sometimes people just think of body horror as just bad, I don't know, evisceration and other stuff
Mm-hmm.
that someone losing their limbs and But for me, it's more like like the Brood, Cronenberg's The Brood or Crash or
Mm-hmm.
Videodrome. When he's sticking his hand in his stomach and just stuff like that. And I saw a scene in a movie. I think it's in Colorado Space with Nicolas Cage, and there's a scene
Oh,
in there.
yes.
Can't remember if it's a woman or a boy. I think it's a woman who gets hit like by this lightning thing or something,
Yeah. It's the
and then
wife. Yeah.
she's all it messed her up, and
Um,
I was
yeah.
like, oh, I want to do that to a character and make them suffer through it, and see if and have his friends try to help him out with that. So that was a big inspiration for that. Um, and but yeah, no, this is like I said, it's kind of an outlier for me. It's not really something that I normally go to. Um, I didn't even really feel comfortable writing like with the whole meteor and stuff like that because it almost kind of sounded cheesy to me. But then I was like, screw it, just go with it. People write crap like this all the time because I like to have real life reasons for stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Normally, and it's probably because of my own problems with suspension of disbelief. I can I I can watch any movie and enjoy it, but something about books, unless they're done exceptionally well, I really struggle with supernatural stuff and
Mm-hmm.
monsters and things like that because I don't see it pulled off very well
Gotcha.
most of the time for me. But I'm kind of a snob like that, so that's my problem.
Well, I will say that when you introduced the meteor, I had a very like my nostalgia kept going because I was in like 80s ET mode
Mm-hmm.
and so I was just like, "Oh, sweet. All right. How's this going to go?" And then of course, things happened and I was instantly, pulled into the horror and I loved it. So I think that it was a really smart choice for this one.
Well, thank
Uh,
you.
and other people need to get it and read it. Uh, so let's talk about Bruises on a Butterfly more. Um, how did you create your trio of characters for the book? You've got three main characters. What are some of the integral things that you knew you needed to include when you were starting to make them?
I don't really have a cool answer. I pants everything. I never outline, with the exception I did some outlining recently. Once because I was doing a collaboration, and one because I needed to because this book is just so all over the place that I needed to keep track of things. So I usually just start with an idea. Like I said, I want there to be a boy who melts and he's still alive. Basically, his skin is melding together. So, um, I think just as each chapter went by, I just I didn't have anything set out. I didn't base anything on anyone. Um, the one kid, I can't remember his name, Jackie, maybe the overweight kid. Um,
Yeah.
I think I just recall like he has like a thing where he's constantly like tugging at his shirt.
Mm-hmm.
And I just, growing up, I just remember and in seeing my my kids as friends if they were overweight, and particularly the boys, they would just kind of have like this nervous, is my fat showing out of my shirt? And so they were constantly just like tugging at their clothing, whether it be because it's riding up too high, or it's going places that maybe shouldn't, and they don't want it to define their body because they're
Mm-hmm.
self-conscious. And I always felt really bad about that when people, because I'm skinny, I definitely don't have that problem. And when I see stuff like that, I'm just like, oh man, that's sad. And so I guess that was one of the cool things I like about Jackie, because um, I wanted them to each have their kind of like their own, I don't know, their own like little, I don't know what the word is, but just like not flaws. 'Cause I wouldn't consider that a flaw, just something to kind of like empathize with them.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Taylor and his home life,
Mm-hmm.
and I think it's Kevin.
Yep.
Um, uh, yeah, I feel like an idiot. I don't know anybody's names or anything, and I'm kind of trying to even remember Kevin. He's more like kind of like the straight laced. Things are going good for me. My dad's awesome,
Mm-hmm.
kind of thing. So I guess he's more like the normal one, who wishes he could have this girl, I guess.
Yep.
And I don't know. I just wanted to. uh, I didn't have anything like set. Like I need to do this with this guy. I need to do this with this guy. It's just each page I wrote, and then I'd write it and write the next one and see where it led. No planning, nothing cool, no cool answer.
No, I mean, no, I get the pantser thing with creating characters too. They just, sometimes they just kind of come out of nowhere. They have their own voice and they just spill onto the page, and that's who they are.
Mm-hmm.
There's no planning ahead of time. So I get that.
Yep.
Um, about your setting, though, how do you? I mean, we've talked a little bit about, we've gone sort of into the nostalgia of, remembering how things were when you were a kid. Um, in this particular book, did you pull on any particular place when you were creating uh, the town, or did you sort of make it a little bit more like this could be any town, any small town in the US, or?
No, I think usually I write in other places that I'd rather be. I live in Southwest Michigan. Not that Michigan sucks or anything; it's a beautiful state. Um, and I've made some really good memories in my hometown. But there are other places that I'm like, man, would I be happier living here? And so I might write a book, like in Los
Mm,
Angeles or something. I used to really want to live there. I don't think I would like it anymore. Um, but this time I decided that maybe the cornfield had something to do with it. Not that we have cornfields all over the place, but I grew up in the country. We definitely had them out there. So that might have something to do with it. Plus, I like the imagery of a cornfield, and there's something kind of, I don't know, spooky and almost claustrophobic about being in the middle of one,
mm,
because you can't see the right direction,
yeah,
um, and you can't see anything except for more corn,
yeah,
and it slices your skin and your legs and your face and your arms, depending how fast you are running through it. Um, and I just like the idea of like a clearing where there's this fort. So it's hidden, but it's not. It's like in the middle of this thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that I think maybe I possibly could have been also um, maybe a little inspired by Josh Malerman. He has a great Michigan pride thing going where he's written a lot of his stuff that takes place in Michigan.
Mm.
And so maybe I was like, I'm going to do that. I live here too. I'll write my next book in Michigan.
Mm. Nice. Um, yeah, I am ashamed to say that I have not read any other Josh Malerman other than Bird Box and Mallory. So I did not know about the Michigan connection, but that's really cool. And I do get the state pride thing of wanting to write in your home state, though. That's the whole main thing. So,
Yeah.
Do you, let's see, I guess in some of your other, where would you say some of your other like coming of age horror novels have taken place? Like, what was sort of your favorite setting to write?
Skull-Faced Boy for sure. Because it was, it's not a horror book. Dark stuff happens. Because it's a road trip and it goes from Denver, Colorado to Hermosa Beach, California. And I used Google Traffic and Google Maps as prompts. Talk about pantsing. That book was pants maybe more than anything else. And I wanted to make I wanted this road trip to have like a real, like if you wanted to dissect it, you could really hit these places. And not that anybody could technically do that by reading the book, because I don't lay all that stuff out like that, but I could. Mm-hmm. And so, if I drew on things that I saw in Traffic View and just kind of like what's that person doing over there? It looks like they're, just stuff like that. Or I would just stare at a little neighborhood or something, or a trailer park, and just come up with something. What could Levi, the protagonist, why would he be here? Mm-hmm. So that was fun. I could have written 40,000 more words in that easy, but I didn't want to overstay my welcome. And that was the most fun. And I have 3 coming of age books that are very autobiographical.
Okay.
Some of the stuff is kind of like I did take some liberties to dramatize some of the stuff, just so that it didn't read like a some kind of memoir. I didn't want it to do. I wanted to read like a piece of fiction.
Yeah.
But people would probably be surprised how much nonfiction is in those 3 books. And so those were a lot of fun to write, because I got talk about nostalgia. I literally went back to the ages of 18, 19, and 20 and wrote stuff that, 80% plus that really happened. And then made books out of them. So that was fun too. But yeah, so those which are The Same Deep Water as You, Slow Burn on Riverside, and Broad Street Bastard, and then Skull-Faced Boy. So those are the most fun I've had writing.
That's awesome. Nice. There was a comment from Jose here. He says, the freedom versus the fear of being in a group of young boys alone in a cornfield is such a great backdrop for a story. I felt like it made the boys speak more freely about what they were going through.
Cool, man. Thanks.
Now we get to talk about the bad guys, your antagonists. The one in Bruises on a Butterfly is particularly awful.
Mhm.
How do you shape these characters and put them in conflict with your protagonists when you're writing coming of age horror?
Again, no real process. Another boring answer. It just happened.
Mm-hmm.
I wrote it, whether that be drawing a life experience or drawing on drawing on. And I'm not talking about Taylor's father being my experience, because that was not my experience. Just anything in a book, whether it be drawing from personal experience or somebody who's close to me, borrowing, just, I mean, we all have, we all go through different things. Anybody, not that it would be any good, but anybody could write a story and tell a story and use their imagination to make up stuff. Just, subconsciously, you're grabbing stuff from movies you've seen, music that you've listened to. Same way with writing a song. You you're going to your influences are going to come out whether you like them or not,
Mm-hmm.
on a subconscious level. And so I can't really explain, as far as like, I wanted Taylor to really have been through it. I wanted there to be a lot of empathy for him and what he's going through,
Mm-hmm.
and give him a real reason to root for him to never go back home.
Yeah. Um, who would you say is the worst antagonist that you've written in any of your stuff?
Man, geez, that's a really tough question. Um, uh, um, okay, probably the guy. I think his name is Doc from The Pale White, who holds three young girls against their will and uses them for trafficking. The book starts out with them getting out right away, and we don't see much of this guy, but I mean, come on, that's a bad evil thing to do. So there wasn't a lot of everything is kind of like after the aftermath and coping with life again. So he's only in it for a second. He gets killed immediately. Um, but what a douchebag, right? For
Right.
doing this
Yeah.
for doing this to these girls. So yeah, but essentially there's no character building from, so maybe that's kind of a cheap answer to give. Another one would be, does heroin count? Heroin is the
Yeah.
antagonist in Wallflower, and that was maybe that one.
Hmm. Um, I am going to ask for your favorite examples of coming of age horror in films, TV, books, games, and I just need to run out for 1 second. I'm experiencing a little bit of pain,
Oh, sure,
but
sure. Do what you got to do.
I'll be right back. But I would like you to just give our readers, watchers, listeners a list here.
Okay, I will do that. Okay, my books, horror coming of age. I think I've listed them: The Body by Stephen King, um, Boy's Life by Robert R. McCammon, uh, gosh, drawing a blank. Let's go to film. Film is so much easier for me. River's Edge. I've talked about that already too. River's Edge. Um, Mysterious Skin. It's a movie, independent movie, very hard to watch. Bully. There's two movies called Bully, but this one is about the kids who kill their friend, based on a true story. That's hard to watch too. Super Dark Times, great movie. I have never read Shadowland by Peter Straub. I've never read Straub, period. Actually, I own some of his stuff, but I have never actually read it, with the exception of, I think, a short story. I've never read one of his novels. I think she said games too. Games, I don't know. I'm not a huge gamer like I used to be, and I don't know what would constitute as coming of age for video games. I'm not sure. I think Limbo, was that coming of age? I don't know. I know World of Warcraft isn't, which is what was my jam for a long time. Books. I know there's more books. Dang it. J. David Osborne wrote some, I can't remember what he calls the series of books. Maybe they're all Black Gum series, but he's got a book called Black Gum I really like. It's coming of age. Edward Lorne has some really good coming of age. Betting of Boys, Bay's End. Those are good coming of age. I know that there's a really important one that I'm missing. Oh, Mongrels by Stephen Graham Jones is a good one. That's a great one. I'm surrounded by books. I don't know.
Sorry. All right.
Everywhere. No problem.
Yeah, I occasionally, it's been a little while, but I have stomach ulcer stuff that happens occasionally, and that was definitely the pain that I was just having. So I apologize for
no need to apologize.
Step out for a moment. But thank you for providing that list. It looks like we have another comment from Robert Clover or Clover. I apologize if I'm mispronouncing your name. He's asking, have you ever read Shadowland by Peter Straub?
I answered him. I've never read any Straub, with the exception of maybe a short story.
I have not read any Peter Straub either. And I am very sad that I have not. Again, that is in the list, the never-ending
list.
PR list. We're going to go to an aside question, which is kind of a thing that we've been doing this season, which does not have to do with the subject. And I really wanted to make sure that we highlighted your second book that has come out recently, because you've got the double duo here. And this book is called The Bedmakers, right? And you co-wrote it with John Bowden. So I just wanted you to take a few moments to discuss that book and what it means to you, and why people should pick it up.
Okay. It's not horror, first of all. We have gotten a couple of reviews recently that's like, this is not horror. And they're really upset about that. Which doesn't make any sense to me. If it's a good book, it's a good book. I mean, or maybe they just didn't like the book. I don't know. It's the same with the movie. If you turn on a movie and this isn't horror, hey man, was it a good movie? So it's not horror. It's crime. It's a crime thriller, and is about two elderly homeless men who live in Chicago, and they heard that they can find it. This takes place in the late 70s. They heard they can find work out west, so they hop a train and head out west, searching. And along the way, they run into some problems. I don't want to say too much. It's a novel, but it's a short novel. but they run into some major drama that sets them on a entirely different path. And so by the time they make their next stop, they are really fighting to make better names for themselves, continue on this right path, and then they get stuck in the middle of this small town's dark secrets that have been just been dormant for a long time.
Mm.
And they find themselves in a position of almost like amateur sleuths.
Okay.
And there's twists in it. It's dark. It's very sad. John and I both just make sad books all the time. I don't know why. We're not depressed people, but we just can't help it. And this is a very sad book. So, and I suppose Bruises on a Butterfly is too. This might be, I don't know if this is sadder or just as, but again, not horror, crime. It's a little gritty, but it's also fun. And I'm very proud of it. I think that it's one of the more accessible things, I guess, that John and I have both written. And I think it's one of the best things that we've written alone or together. He's a joy to write with. He's an excellent writer, phenomenal writer. And there's no problems whatsoever with ever making our sometimes when you collaborate with people, it's not very seamless, and so you have to have somebody go through and kind of, I don't know, make the voices blend better, and we tend to mimic each other really well. So
Nice.
it's always seamless, and we don't need any kind of alpha going in there, and which is what I've done in the past. Not to discredit, but I'm like, when I do collaborate, if I collaborate with somebody who's got a completely different voice, I tend to be like this control freak where I will rewrite things. And I mean, I only do this if it's agreeable with the other person I'm writing with, which the two people I'm talking to about in particular had zero problem with it. They're like, hey man, yeah, whatever, if you got to rewrite this thing or destroy this, whole chapter completely or whatever makes a better book. The last thing I want is to put a book out that you could tell who wrote what every time. That will pull you right out. So nobody wants that. So yes, the Bedmakers, and it was published by Crystal Lake Publishing, and you can actually still get a limited signed hardcover.
Ooh.
I think it's limited to 60 copies or 66 copies or something through Thunderstorm Books that has a completely different cover that was done by myself.
Nice.
And I think they still have some copies left. I don't know how many are left, but they're pricey, but there's still some left.
All right, guys.
I have two more hardcover signed limiteds coming out this year, but I can't really talk about them.
Okay. Well, but people will need to follow your stuff to make sure that they know about it.
Yeah.
Because that's extremely exciting. And if anyone does not have a copy of the Bedmakers yet, you should jump on getting that special limited edition hardcover. Thunderstorm Books makes amazing limited edition books, so that's a really cool opportunity. I noticed Red had jumped into the chat here, so just wanted to show.
Hey, Red.
She had comment about Straub. She read The Talisman. And I also wanted to comment on the fact that there's been a reoccurring theme this season about grief horror and grief books, because there has been a lot of that. I love grief writing. Like, eat it for breakfast, eat it for lunch, dinner. It's my favorite thing ever. So the fact that every single guest has had a grief horror book just makes my heart sing. And the fact that both of your books have that reoccurring theme also just makes me really excited. That's definitely something that we're seeing a lot more of this year, particularly. So it's just really exciting.
Mm-hmm.
And I totally understand the like liking to write sad things, but we're not sad people. It
Yeah.
just something about it that's just so cathartic. It just, gives you good feelings to write down sad stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't get it. I don't understand it, but I don't know. It's just there. So, um well, so that people can follow you and make sure that they know what you have going on, where they can get these uh, special editions that may or may not be coming out. Where are the best places for people to find you and sort of keep in touch with that?
Just chadlutzke.com. There's links everywhere, right on the front page. There's a link to my Patreon page if you would like to become a patron. There's also you could sign up for my newsletter. I don't do my newsletter a whole lot, and it's normally just once in a while I might go on something. I'll do it more often, and then kind of fade away and only do it to announce special things like the limited editions or giveaways sometimes that I have. And I do the same thing on my Patreon page, more so. And then, yeah, all of my books are up there. I think links to Twitter and Facebook and Instagram are up there. My graphic design stuff, if people are looking for, I got pre-mades, and then commission stuff that I've done is up there. Everything is at chadlutzke.com. I don't know if I have a link to my YouTube channel, Creepy Couch, but I should. I can't remember if I put it on there or not.
Well, if it's not, it will be in the video here when it goes
Awesome.
up on YouTube, so people can definitely find it in the comments here, and we'll have links to your socials, to your newsletter, and your website in the comments as well, or not in the comments, in the description as well, so that everybody can find it there.
Great.
Thank you so much for coming on tonight and
So I appreciate the invite.
About everything. It's been a real pleasure. Again, I apologize for my disappearance.
No, that's fine.
No, it was really great having you on. And for those who have not seen Chad's cover art, it is really phenomenal. He makes some great
Thank you.
covers. I think I saw 2 today, maybe 2 that had just been announced or just shown that were really quite cool. So if you are an author in need of a cover for your upcoming book, or you're a publisher and you need a cover, definitely check out his stuff. We'll have a link there too. And next week on Winterviews, we will be having Aquino Loaiza on, and we're going to be talking all about existential horror. So that's another bread and butter fun thing that I love. Can't wait for that. So make sure that you, if you can, tune in next week. We will have this video available on YouTube likely this weekend. So if you popped in the middle and didn't get a chance to see the beginning, you'll have the opportunity this weekend. And yes, thank you all for coming tonight. Thank you again, Chad.
Thank you.
And I hope that you all have a great evening.